I'm Ronnie from Ronnie's Garage. Today we're holding our monthly technical seminar. We're going to be working on a Silver Cloud 3. The customer did say when he started it up in the morning on fast idle, put it in reverse, he had to use both feet to stop it because it took off like a bat out of hell. This is a servo hydraulic system. It's a mechanical servo hydraulic brakes. But I noticed that once I got up to road speed, you hit the brakes, it grabs pretty good. The pedal's a little low, but it has a good grab. But if you hit it a couple times at low speeds, it doesn't have any grab. I don't know if you noticed that. Yeah, you noticed that pulling your car out. We're going up. First thing I like to do when I have a car with iffy brakes is drive it so I can get that feeling. I want to check the hydraulic part. So these are your master cylinders here. There's a tandem unit, upper unit runs 2 wheel cylinders on the front and the rear wheel cylinders. The lower unit just operates another 2 wheel cylinders on the front. So you want to make sure that it builds pressure, and it seems to be building, it has to be hard. If the master cylinders are bad, this lever will go way down and you'll hear all kinds of clanking, because usually what has happened, either there's no fluid in the system or the piston is seized in there. Real common problem on these. Now this, see that, what I just did there? It wasn't returning. It should come back further. Normally you're going to have a little play in here, and you need that because if you don't have that little play in there, those were hanging up, then your brakes will stay on ever so slightly. You'll apply the brakes, it'll return, but it won't return all the way, so it's going to hold a little residual pressure, and every time you hit the brakes, that pressure is going to increase. And eventually you'll start smoking wheels. I've seen it happen. So, what bothers me is how it came back all of a sudden. Now these 2 linkages right here are pulling linkages. They're hooked up to the servo. If you look here, this is the servo. Going forward, when the car is going forward, watch yourself. That's reverse. Okay, when it's going forward and you apply the brake, this thing is going to go this way. And what that does is the upper linkage pulls. So, and it should come back to a relax right there when you let go. Now going the other direction, the lower linkage pulls. And then when you let off the brake, it's supposed to relax. So one of the things that's supposed to pull this thing back is the spring right here. There's a little spring here. And that one's a little tweaked, but it should still work. I think we got a problem in here. This is binding a bit. And we got an awful lot of play in there. Normally, these should be pretty much sitting against there. You got this floating linkage up here. If they didn't do that, then I think when you were in reverse, you bend a rod or something like that. So, I could take this servo off. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea, because you've got a little bit of oil on this drain hole here. What you got is, this is your transmission, automatic transmission. There's a seal in here that's supposed to keep the fluid on this side. This is a dry clutch. Hence, when fluid gets on, it's not dry anymore, it's not going to pull very well. It's not going to grab. I want to do some research here. Your brake pedal, this is a right-hand drive, so it's a direct, you can see this is, I'm applying the foot brake right now, and you can watch one of those rods. Oh, look at this. Whoops, sorry.
It's okay.
You see that pulls that inner rod. Now what's supposed to happen, if you watch this clutch here, as I pull that inner rod, it's moving towards the transmission. It's trying to apply that clutch. Okay? But what also I notice is if I pull harder, that other linkage moves a whole bunch. See that other linkage? That's supposed to be stationary almost to a point. What that does is that linkage goes all the way back. It goes through a linkage here that you're parking, this is your parking brake. That's supposed to pull on that linkage. It connects to this rod, which goes all the way back here, to the metal expanders back here. Or mechanical expanders. There's inside, or right next to the wheel cylinders, the hydraulic part, which needs these to pump, to expand. That's what stops the car. There are some mechanical expanders hooked to these linkages that are for your parking brake. So it's not going to use hydraulic pressure to put your parking brake on. But it has a dual purpose. This mechanical linkage gives you the resistance on the brake pedal to apply that clutch. So in other words, what's happening is when you push the brake pedal, you've got this dry clutch in here and you have two levers. You have one going forward to the brake pedal, you have another lever going back to these linkages, and they're on an offset cam. So what happens is when you pull them apart, they push, they go like this. Okay? So this part back here, if you don't get resistance back here, it's going to pull a servo and it's not going to start applying until you get resistance. So you're going to have a lot more pedal travel and you won't have a good feel, which is what I had. So there's an adjustment for this. These are pretty free. Let me get some tools and I'll show you how to do that. You've got this what they call this the equalizer bar. To adjust it, what I do is these linkages come out to the mechanical expanders. These go into the wheel cylinder, or right in front of the wheel cylinder. I disconnect these springs to do my adjustment. So I just let them hang. These springs are like a coil spring and they got two little S hooks, one on each end. Most of them do. Not all of them are still remaining. So I just pull that down. And then this has a pivot pin right here. First of all, all this little play in here adds up. This is not severe yet, but there's little rubber bushings in here, and I've seen it where these flop around. I've even seen one of these brackets break. That was the weirdest feeling driving that car, because you go over bumps and you could hear this bad rattle in the back, and then you go and hit the brake and it kind of bumped back on you and was doing this thing. It was interesting. So, this pin has a cotter pin. You got to pull out. I put my helmet on, but I blinded the light.
Hold your light.
Okay, how about that? Thank you. So, usually a pair of dikes works real good for pulling a cotter pin out. You can just grab it, pry against it. Now, before I pull this pin out, there's an adjuster. This rod is threaded and it has an adjuster. If you take a close look, you can see the threaded parts come through a bit. Pull this pin out. All right. Now, this is what we got to work on. I'm going to pull one wheel so you guys can see how it works in there. How's that? Because sometimes these expanders get bound up and that'll cause this problem. Here's how I pull the hubcaps on these. I go under the valve stem when I can. I try not to pry from out here because it bends these, especially the nice stainless ones like this. Right hand threads on the right side, left hand threads on the left side.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, these drums have little securing screws on them. There's 3 of them. All right. Sometimes they're really tight, like this. Oh, there we go. And you have to use a impact driver.
Is it tight better?
Not necessarily. These are not going to fall off because the wheel holds them on.
So just to hold it in position?
Yeah, it's just yeah.
No slot in the backside to adjust it like an American car?
No. It has an adjuster, but not a slot. They're not. These are not. Nothing like those. Nothing like those.
They're British. Why would
They're not self-adjusting. You adjust them yourself.
I hear you.
All right. Now, you might wonder why this is happening. The drum's not dragging on the brake. It's dragging on the studs from people over tightening them, so they flare out. That's what happens.
Over tightening.
These are only 55 pounds torque. You go to a tire store, they want to do at least 95.
Yeah.
That's American.
It's got brass lug nuts.
Oh, okay.
Brass doesn't
Left
like
and right.
95. Yeah, left and right. We already covered that. So I got a little tool that's pretty cool. This is a little slide hammer that
So you don't like them? sledgehammer technique.
You can use the sledgehammer, but usually what happens is you break the cooling fins off, you bend the backing plate, and you hurt yourself usually.
Oh, I agree.
I agree. Me too. Okay, let's look at this.
Okay.
These brake linings are riveted on from the factory. You can measure the depth on. I usually, when I measure them, which we do when we service them, we pull these drums and clean it. I go millimeters from to the rivet. Okay. So these are. I have a tool. This is probably about 2 or 3, which is plenty. When you get down to a millimeter to the rivet, then it's time to replace it. Another thing you want to look at is the wear. This is pretty uniform. That means that the drum is most likely the proper size. I've seen a lot of oversized drums. They're really expensive from the factory, and only in the last, I don't know how many years, 5 years or so, have people been aftermarket remanufactured or making them. Post 55 sells these. So anyway, so that's pretty even here. That's a good sign. Both shoes are fairly even. If you had one shoe that's really worn and the other one was not, then you would think that you have a frozen wheel cylinder in here. Now, this expander, if you look at this, you see that these little bars right here, this is a mechanical expander. When you pull the parking brake handle or apply the brake and it works against the servo, this expander moves out and it goes against those shoes. See how it's expanding them? Mm-hmm. So once it gets to the point to where it hits the shoe and then it pushes the shoe to the drum, that's when you get your resistance for the servo. So as when we were looking at this, we had a long travel on that before it fully engaged it. So what that usually means is that this adjuster, it needs adjusting, usually. Because first of all, you got a gap here. These shoes should be pressed against this little bar here. See that? You got play in it. Before,
right on the high spot of the bar.
Yeah, it should be. Let me get a pair of pliers and we'll see if the wheel cylinder is frozen, because that'll cause it too.
Hold on, let me plug.
All right.
Hold on, let me plug.